everybody. Welcome to Last Week in Local for the week ending December 2nd, 2019. I can't believe it's December already. Where did the year go? With me today is Colin Nielsen from Sterling Sky. He's in here pinch hitting for Mary and Mike. Mike is on vacation. Mary is probably skiing. We got snow over the weekend, so she's having fun.
Yep. We got a ton here in Toronto. We got slammed yesterday.
Did you?
We did.
My family in Minnesota were sending out pictures of digging out the cars yesterday, and my mom was in Phoenix griping back at them about how it was only in the 60s down there. They didn't think she was very amusing. She's like, I need a parka. She was terrible. Let's just jump into it, Colin. Go for it. What do you got for us this week?
Yeah, a couple things from the local search forum. One thought was interesting. Dan Foland had posted back in June of this year. He noticed that local results for sex-related legal queries had been completely removed. So 3-packs for things like sexual harassment attorney, near me, completely gone. And for the longest time, they were gone, but then they came back. And as of last week, I think on the 25th, Dan and Joy had both noticed that the change had sort of happened again, and all of a sudden, 3-packs for that particular vertical completely gone. Interestingly, at the same time, and this is something we see when these types of things happen, when some kind of dial's been turned, is these really crummy, spammy, typically unverified listings show up. So you'll see things. Andy Simpson posted an example of this result where the top 3 listings were named sex crimes lawyer or sex crimes attorney or something like that. So whatever's going on, it's probably related to the Bedlam update. It seems to be connected because there's a lot of weird like one boxes coming and going and that type of stuff. But it'll be to be seen and something to keep an eye on.
I think, we were talking in the pre-talk a little bit about this, and it seems to me like when they start turning these dials, right? So you see lots of like jumping results. You'll be 2 one day, gone the next day, back up to number 2, like very volatile search and or organic or maps results. And so they're turning these dials, trying to dial things in, but it seems like they like turn up the dial on keywords in the business name, and they turn down the dial on relevance. So that's what lets the spammy listings in. So You've got the keyword in the business name, but the relevance is very shaky because usually these spammy listings don't have a ton of reviews and they don't have a ton of posts or Q&A or all the signals that Google uses for relevance. So, obviously with Bedlam, they're doing a lot of this dial turning and kind of making a hot mess. And there's this theory kind of floating around a little bit about it, just this is the way it's going to be forever. I don't think so.
Neither do I.
Convinced.
No.
I think with Google's goal of trying to get people to buy ads, the more volatile they make your rankings kind of come and go, it makes people kind of step back a bit and say, I'm not going to do anything right now. Because I'm good this day and I'm bad this day. If they really want people to buy ads, they make it pretty steady, and everybody who's not in the top 3 is going to go buy ads now because they're not there, right? So I don't think it's here to stay, but they're definitely slow about righting the ship, it seems like. Because it's been, 2 weeks now?
Since the beginning of Bedlam?
Yeah.
It's almost a month now. We're going on
5th of November.
Yeah. 4 weeks in terms of that update.
That's a long time for things to be so volatile. To me, I don't remember it taking this long before.
Yeah, it is. And I guess segueing into the next one, I highlighted the other forum post, which is all about the Bedlam update. I think this is an old thread, so I think on November 5th, or maybe it was November 6th, some user posted that he was seeing some issues, and this was like the first time that somebody noticed that something was going on, and it's become the trending thread over there. And I know you guys chatted a little bit about it last week, but just wanted to highlight that as of yesterday, there was some like major ranking changes with clients that we track. So it's certainly not done. Whatever started on November 5th is still in a little bit of flux. So keep that in mind.
I sort of watch that Bright local rank flux tool, which is like
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Sunday it said it was really not very good, and today was like a little more green than yellow. Sunday was like orange, and so you kind
Yeah.
of see this. Even in the flux tool of up down up down up
Yeah.
down up down, like lots happening, nothing happening, lots happening, nothing happening. And again, I think that just lends into our thoughts that it's not done yet. We don't know exactly. Because a lot of times, like, when Your Money or Your Life or whatever came out, it was more like, okay, these are the things that are bad. These are the things that Google is, spanking out of there, go away kind of stuff. And it was very clear what you could and couldn't do. And Bert even is a little bit clear on this is what Bert is. This, Bedlam, it's not really clear on what they're doing.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it was ever specifically tweeted about or by like Danny Sullivan or nobody at Google has said a single word about this.
No, well,
correct?
It's local. It's like the redheaded stepchild of all of those people. They don't care if it's on the maps, honestly. I mean, that's pretty clear. It's pretty clear to me that if it's maps, it's not their department, not their problem. I don't think they're going to confirm or deny anything that has to do with what's happening in the maps. I think, we have to wait and see and adopt it depends kind of attitude towards of what to do about it. But I don't think there's anything we can do right now.
Yeah. There was, so related to that, there is, just so people listening that are subscribers to the Expert's Guide to Local SEO, I know Joy's been sort of like detailing the Bedlam update. Mm-hmm. So it's literally got November 5th, everything that happened, observations, and then there's probably 3 or 4 more significant dates that happened throughout November, where she's detailed all of that stuff out. So that's really helpful for trying to make decisions and figure out what to do about this stuff.
Well, and she added a new section to it for subscribers where it talks about technical issues. Like, these are the known technical issues, which is incredibly helpful when you see weird stuff and you're like, what do I do with this? Like, what is this?
Yeah. Because with so many things, it could fall into one of 2 buckets where it's WIA, as Google would say, or a bug, one of the 2. And you never really know until Google officially confirms it. So that page that you're referring to is trying to accomplish that, where we can track all the bugs that Google has officially come out and said, like, yes, this is a bug or a technical issue. So like the most recent ones Joy added there was stuff in November. There's the technical issue with responding to reviews using the new interface. That was resolved. And then there was that ongoing technical issue that Mike was very vocal about and tweeting about with the question and answers feature, that they were just coming and going and being removed and being added back. But I think that one's sorted out as well.
For the most part, I haven't heard any. Last Mike talked about it, he felt pretty confident that most everything was back. So, but I think it's so helpful to have that somewhere to go check. I'm a subscriber. I find it incredibly useful to go look and see when I see weird stuff. Is this something somebody else figured out, or is this something new, or is it just me, or like, I don't know. And you said Google categories is as WIA. Is that what you said?
Working as intended.
Oh, WAI, working as intended.
WAI.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Working as intended. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Whenever Google says that, I kind of want to go to them. Are you sure this is what you intended? Because.
Yeah. Where I see that come up the most, actually, if I don't know if you've run into this, Carrie, but there's a lot of people posting at the Google forum lately. Complaining about verifying a listing, and then it goes into this pending state.
Yeah.
And it'll last for like 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. That is a perfect example of, if you ask Google about that, you're going to get one of those 2 answers. It's either a technical issue, or they'll just tell you it's working as intended.
Yeah.
But that's kind of it, and you have to decipher and figure it out.
An ongoing issue, and I think that this is just technical. As far as I understand, is I have like pending edits in my dashboard, but there's nothing there to verify. Like, they want you to verify things that don't show up. Like,
Yeah, I think that one's been an ongoing weird thing
yeah.
that's been like off and on an issue with the dashboard the
Yeah,
last
for sure.
couple of years, anyways.
Yep. So that's the one I run into the most, and I sort of, if I mean, I'll go look, but I pretty much ignore it because 99% of the time there's nothing there to approve.
Yeah. It makes me think in those cases, it's probably there is something on the back end that's being flagged or Google's trying to assess,
Yeah.
but they've screwed up the user interface. Like it shouldn't be
Makes sense.
connected to whatever it is that Google's trying to internally sort out with the
Yeah.
data behind the scenes.
And they don't tell us anything about it because they don't want us to draw the conclusion that, hey, we're looking extra special close at this
Yeah,
thing.
right.
Probably. Awesome.
Yeah, two more threads from the local search forum. I think it was Joy that pointed out that she was seeing a new user-generated attribute. So this particular attribute was good discounts. So if a user is looking at a business's knowledge panel on a mobile device, there'll be a little section where you can select attributes about the business. And apparently this good discounts is one that is either new or is just showing up a lot more often. I believe somebody on the thread had mentioned they had seen it before for a very specific vertical.
I think I think those are user generated, right? Like the more
Yeah.
it shows up, the more Google draws a relevance. It like sticks it in there. But it also, knowing these things, right, gives us clues about what we can optimize for.
Yeah.
So if you have a client who gives really great discounts, man, you should be playing that up in their posts, in their Q&A, getting reviews that mention good discounts if you can, or if you can't get them to say it in the review, say it in the response to the review. Although review responses, people say, have limited effect on things, I think they're used for relevance still. I think that keeping track of these little things that show up, people are like, oh, whatever, that's not a big deal. But, knowing that it's there, that's like one more thing I can try and help my client be visible for.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's a good idea on like a monthly housekeeping sort of to-do item is just checking your knowledge panel, your client's knowledge panel, and seeing if there's any new attributes that Google is offering up because there's a reason why they're doing it.
Well, and speaking of new things and checking your knowledge panel, we're hearing talk of a new way for service area businesses to pick services. Right now it's being tested with plumbers, and I believe only in the UK. I can't recreate it yet, so it's very beta or alpha or whatever you want to call it at this point in time. But, knowing what's going on and keeping track of like the new things, which the local search forum is a great resource for that, can help you kind of be ready for these things when they're available to you.
Yep.
Instead of having a client say, hey, I just saw this thing. What is it? And you go, I don't know what that is. You could be like,
that's
oh,
a
yeah,
really
I saw
good
that
point.
yesterday. Kind of thing. Or, oh, here's what this is. You're not
Yep.
ready yet, or it's not available to you yet, but here's what it is. I think any way you can educate yourself to kind of be ready for these things as they roll out saves you so many headaches in the long run.
Yeah, agreed. Last one, there was a post at the forum that I found interesting. The user was asking a question around editing listings on maps. So the specific question was, is there any research pointing to spacing out Google My Business edits in order to increase the likelihood of those edits immediately publishing? And this person had run into a situation where he was editing, probably doing spam fighting, I would assume, and he was editing listings. The first 5 got published immediately, and then the next 4 similar edits to similar listings went into that pending review mode.
Yeah.
And he was just curious if there was some kind of correlation between doing all these edits in a row and then it somehow lowering his trust because he's submitting all these edits. And I suggested that I don't think that's the case. But basically what you do have to keep in mind is the more edits you make to listings that ultimately get denied, so they go into that not applied state, that is definitely having an impact on your your trust level. So your future edits are going to get published more often if your current edits are getting published. So obviously it has that domino effect type
Right.
thing.
I've run into this. I have a terrible success rate with edits because I did not realize that if a listing has been verified, that if you make edits to like if you report it as spam, like it's not a real location or something like that, if it's been verified, like 99% of the time, it's automatically not applied. And you
Yep.
have to report those via the redressal form, not via the suggest and edit and maps. And I didn't know that. It doesn't say that anywhere. So I was just reporting stuff, trying to fight spam for a client, and
Yep.
they all got denied. Like everything I submitted got denied. And I have one that's stuck in pending, which eventually will probably be denied. But I had no clue. I'm like, well, this is so obviously spam. I mean, it's Regis. There's Regis
Yeah.
storefront right there. Like, this is not a real location. Nope. If it's been verified, you really should just use the form or the forum if you can't
Yes.
use the form.
Yeah, 100%. It kind of locks it down in. And I think there was a time where we were theorizing that reviews played into it as well. So a listing that was verified and had a couple reviews was a lot harder to say remove from apps than one that didn't have any reviews.
Yeah.
And then that's why we would see all these cases when these big spam networks were pumping thousands of listings out into the ecosystem. And you look for those patterns to kind of group them together, you would see that they would all have, the keyword stuff name that was like this, and they would all have one review with no text or like one sentence of garbage. And it was because they had somehow figured that out as well, that the listing was a little bit more safe if you've got like a review on there.
Not okay. That's not safe. That's sort of a good segue into my first item, which is an article you wrote, Colin, at Sterling Sky about really craptastical advice from Google My Business support. I was a victim of this. I knew it was garbage as soon as they sent it to me, though. I think it was the last one on your list where they told me to just pick a radius instead of using zip codes, because now you get 20 locations for a service area business, and that's it. 20 towns or 20 zip codes or whatever. And my husband's painting business is a service area business, and it covers about a quarter of 3 different counties. So I can't pick a county, but we cover about 30 zip codes. So, I can't go to the next biggest region, which is a county, because we don't cover the whole county. We'd be showing for a lot of places where Todd doesn't do business. And so I went to GMB and I said, I need more than 20. And they're like, oh, just set a radius. Well, we haven't been able to set radiuses for months. And I was like, what? Luckily, I knew that was not the case. But how many people do they tell that to that don't know? And I get it. It's hard to train all of your support people. And it is, you pointed out in the pre-talk, it's way better than it was 5 years ago. I totally get it. But when you're giving bad advice to people who don't know that it's bad advice, like some of the stuff in there, putting keywords in your labels, and
which is a real common one. That was the most common one that you could find across like all these different forums, and is the label one. It's a really interesting one.
Yeah, I don't know what, like somebody's perpetuating that.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what makes me so curious. And I don't know if I would ever be able to get more insight into this research around this, but that's what I would want to know is what is perpetuating and where is, like, did it start with a single overzealous support member who thought this would be a good idea, or maybe he did some testing on his own and came to some weird conclusion, or who knows? But that, to me, that would be the really interesting thing to figure out.
Well, because they're judged by their helpfulness rating. Like when you get support help, then you get like this little "Hey, did we help you?" kind of thing, right? And maybe that they figured out that was a way for people to say, nobody's ever told me this before.
Right.
So-and-so was so helpful, and they told me, and then it's the
5 out of
telephone
5.
game. This guy told this guy, who told this person, who told this person, who told this person, and it gets, bastardized as it moves through the telephone process, maybe. I don't know. I just feel like they need to do a bit better job of educating their team when things change, when the guidelines change, or when the services that they offer change. Put out a memo every morning, something like this works, this doesn't work, kind of stuff. I don't know. I find it annoying when they give bad advice. Luckily, I know, but a lot of people don't know it's bad advice.
Yeah.
There's an interesting article at NBC News about Amazon's delivery service, and this is for like same day or next day delivery in big metros where they have their own contracted drivers deliver things. Now, if you live in the boonies like I do and it all comes UPS or post office, but there's quite a few. It's kind of an expose on their very scary practices, one of which is I guess not all of their drivers can complete the background checks, or it takes too long to complete the background checks. So all the drivers go in the morning and just pick a credential off the wall, even if it's not their name and picture, so that they can get a list of people's names, addresses, and phone numbers and go deliver their packages. So they're sending people without background checks out to people's houses with stuff, which just blows me away. And whether it took too long to get the background check, they couldn't pass the background check, and Amazon's excuse is, oh, well, they're contractors. They use that as their excuse to get out of any kind of being held liable for things or whatever. But it's definitely
scary stuff.
An interesting article, and there's more than just this credentials things. There's some other things in there about, how their quotas need to be met, and if they don't meet them, what happens if they don't meet their quotas. It's kind of this whole scary kind of, we're feeding this Amazon machine, which, I use Amazon a lot. We have a Target and a Walmart. So if I need something that you can't get at Target and Walmart, I got to Amazon it. Like, that's how it works. and you're feeding this kind of not great engine, right? Of treating people poorly. It's kind of the same thing. We talk a lot on Last Week in Local about like the Grubhubs and the DoorDashes and how poorly people get treated there as well. So it's an interesting article for sure. I guess I'm lucky that I live in the booties. Yay me. Alex Moran posted on Twitter a screenshot of Google Maps with that terrorist warning on it during the London Bridge incident over kind of the weekend. It had like real-time warning of something's going on here, which I find, incredibly helpful if you're a tourist and you're in the area and you're not in front of a TV and you don't have your Facebook or Twitter feed open, or you don't know, exactly what's going on, for it to just pop right up on the map for you. Oh, well, maybe we shouldn't go that direction today. Let's go over here instead, kind of thing. And it feeds into this whole, Google wants maps to be sort of your tour guide for everything local, right? For sure. Super helpful feature, though, I think, being able to overlay that real-time news right over the map.
Yeah, very.
Mike and I had John Jantz of Duct Tape Marketing on for a deep dive that posted last week, and we talk a lot about selling strategy as part of your agency sales process for SMBs, for small businesses, small medium businesses. It's very interesting. John's a very interesting guy. He's written a bunch of books. He's got a really great kind of process down for getting buy-in for small businesses. And his new book is called The Self-Reliant Entrepreneur, which is, he called it a devotional, which to me brings all kinds of pictures of a religious tome into my head, but it's not at all. He kind of takes writings from like the old kind of philosophers, like not old, but older kind of writers like Thoreau, and pulls them into relating to entrepreneurs today and how to find that spark of creativity and want to build your business. It's kind of an interesting concept, I thought, for sure. And so Mike and I interview him. We talk a lot about, sales and strategy and marketing and his books. So that was a fun interview for sure. Phil Rochak wrote an article published it over the weekend about how to tell if your local SEO person is gun shy and afraid to make Google angry. And he talks about, it like sets it in the format of phobias, like, they say things like having lots of internal links is spammy, and how that can be not really true. And it sort of, to me, seems like a primer on how to know if your local SEO company actually knows what they're talking about. Right? I don't know. I think it's a really interesting article, and how things that aren't necessarily true, like phobia 6 is city pages are doorway pages, and doorway pages are spam, so you shouldn't create city pages. Now, I've never heard that one before, but I could totally see where you would maybe consider that a doorway page, right? It's not really, it's a landing page. Landing pages are fine as long as you deliver information. They aren't like a zero information page that just funnels people through. So, but I could see where somebody would use that loosely as a doorway page definition, especially if they didn't want to do them and they wanted to discredit somebody who did recommend them, right?
Yep, that's a good example. Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting article. Phil always has good stuff to say.
I like number 7 too.
What was number 7? What was that?
Number 7 is play it safe and don't let title tags go over 70 characters. What's really interesting about that one is the presentation that Joel did at Santa Monica Local U last year. I think it was last year. Mm-hmm. And he did this whole big research project on title tags, and like he was building these like insanely long title tags and testing whether or not, for example, the 50th word in the title tag was still getting read by Google and influencing rankings and all that kind of stuff. And the conclusion was basically like, do not worry about the 3 dots that cut your title tag off in the search results, because Google's reading them and they're very influential. And it was a good study that Joel did. I don't know if it was ever made public or not, but
I'm not sure. I don't know if he wrote about it or not, or if they might have done a deep dive on it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But what I think it, so you can get the things that are important for the click-through, right? Your call to action and the important pieces at the beginning of the page title, because hopefully that's going to show up in your SERP. But then you can get all the other things you need to get in there past the ellipse, because it's still important, right? It's still relevant, even if you can't see it, I think is the point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right on. Cindy Crum did a really fun Whiteboard Friday about Fraggles, not the Muppet kind, the entity content fragment kind. I find this kind of nerdy SEO stuff incredibly interesting. And, we see this actually happening where the search engine results provide a jump link to a specific section of content on a page instead of just the page where you have to go dig through the page to find the content. I find that, that whole process by which they're parsing and delivering content in sections very interesting. So I definitely think that's worth a watch if you're into geeky SEO stuff like I am. Claire Carlisle did a presentation at Pint Sized Marketing in Dublin last week. She's talking about Google as the new homepage. She has her, I'm going to share a link to her slide deck, and also they podcasted the presentation, which is up on Spotify. So I'll have links to both of those in the newsletter. And then the last thing I have is today is Search Engine Roundtable's 16th birthday, believe it or not. 16 years ago, there was internet marketing. And I would say this is probably like Search Engine Roundtable and the Daily Search Cast with Danny Sullivan were like those were the first things I went to when I I read and listened every day because that's part of how I learned SEO. Mary, of course, was my mentor and taught me a lot. But that's how we both learned, like, what's new, what's coming up, what does Google think about this. That was like our line into people who actually talked to Google about things, like knew how things worked. I just found it very fascinating back in the day. I was really sad when Danny quit doing Daily Searchcast because I loved it. It was one of my favorite things to listen to. It was like OG podcasting, right? Back in the day. And that's what I have. That's it for this week.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining me, Colin. You're going to be back with me again next week because Mike's still on vacation. Lucky guy. Yep. He's in Thailand, of all places. That sounds like a lot of fun. I bet it's warm there, though. I bet it's hot.
Too warm?
Yeah, I don't do hot. I'm not a heat person. But I'm sure Mike's having a great time.
He tweeted something out. Was it over the weekend? He tweeted some interesting signage that he'd come across.
Yeah, if you don't follow Mike on Twitter, you should go take a look because some of the stuff he finds cracks me up, especially when he's traveling overseas. So we'll have him back here in a few weeks, but next week Colin will join me. And thank you everybody for tuning into Last Week in Local. Just as a reminder, you can subscribe via your favorite podcast app. You can watch the video at the localuniversity.org blog. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter and you'll get a reminder after we post the recording every week, and it will have all the links in it. So thanks for joining us. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week.